don't know about you, but I don't like to watch horror movies in the morning, and that was a little scary. It was like when you're watching Jurassic Park and they're at the beginning saying, oh, sure, it's a good idea for us to grow dinosaurs here. Nothing wrong could happen, right? It's one of those moments where you see all the things growing and festering that we've noticed for so many decades coming to the point of being about to hatch and asking yourself, what can we do now to make a difference? And I'm really appreciative for that panel for grounding us and for me, inspiring me too. Being here today just feels like such a treat. I can't believe I'm in this room with this group of people talking about such an important topic at such a critical moment in time for us. And for me, I wanted to be here for two reasons. One, to applaud the incredible work of the Kettering Foundation, to applaud Sharon for her outstanding leadership and their unwavering commitment to advancing and protecting our democracy. When I think about the work that Kettering does, it's not only about protecting democracy as it is, but also as it should be, and as it could be if we were to work together to center all of the people of this great nation. And I think here at the Kettering Foundation, you know so clearly that in the words of Dr. King, the moral arc of the universe always bends towards justice, but it doesn't happen by accident. It takes people pulling and pushing and prodding and willing it to do so. And I feel like this conversation is a call to arms and a call to action for us to be a part of that work. So the second reason I'm so excited here is to accept that call to take action to protect our democracy, that call to recognize political violence that's on the rise, that call to restore our very humanity in this country that is under threat. At this time of year, I often think about my family, especially my great aunt. She passed away a few years ago at the age of 102. I know, you're thinking I'm going to live forever, so this is great. But when she passed away, we had a homegoing celebration to end all homegoing celebrations in Muscatine, Iowa. That's where my family's historically from. I'm telling you, we rented out the VFW. We did line dancing like there was no tomorrow. We drank up every wine cooler in the region. I am certain of it. And as part of the celebration, they told the story of my family. And our family story is that we were enslaved people in Mississippi and Louisiana that escaped north and settled in Iowa, one of the first states to rebuke the Fugitive Slave Act and not send slaves back south. And Muscatine, Iowa was actually the town where we are the first Black family to ever live. And in the course of my great aunt's life, they told this story, is that she actually sat at the footsteps of people who were born into slavery. How profound is that? 2 generations before I'm standing here today, my great aunt is sitting at the footsteps of people who are born into slavery. And here I got the nerve to be the president of the Human Rights Campaign, talking to you about how we are going to protect and save our democracy. You asked that panel, is there hope to be found? And my answer is yes. You cannot tell me progress isn't happening. You can't tell me that hope isn't possible when I'm standing before you in a room like this talking about what's possible for our democracy. We have to hold on to that. We have to remember that so much of the violence that we're experiencing now is actually a response to the progress that we have made over generations to get to this very point. To get to the point where we are asking ourselves and this nation to say for certain and for sure, who is this democracy for? To me, that is at the heart of so many of the questions that are in front of us and also the opportunity that we have together. Christopher, you told me that PowerPoint would work. It didn't on my iPad, just letting you know. But I'm coming into my second year of the Human Rights Campaign, fired up, as you can see, but fired up because we're on the precipice of something big here. And every time I feel like in our nation's story, in our nation's history, as we get to that point where freedom becomes more evident for more of us, the violence increases. The threats in front of us try to get us to cower and to shirk away and to go back in the closet and to hide. And this is one of those moments where we are again saying, hell no. I just saw the color purple, so you know I had to bring that into the room. But the thing I'm so proud of the Human Rights Campaign is that this has been our central focus to answer this call to action to create a more perfect union over the 40 years that we have been in existence. I mean, if you think about the progress that we have made in 40 years as an LGBTQ plus community, it is phenomenal. I mean, 40 years ago, you would be fired on the spot for being out at work. 40 years ago, if you contracted HIV or AIDS, that was a death sentence that took out a generation of gay men. 40 years ago, the idea of marrying the person that you loved was a dream, let alone planning for it and having a reality television show that could follow you doing it. Friends, I'm here today because the moment that we're in feels so familiar. We face stark realities like the one that we are looking at before, and we've always had a choice to make. We could whimper, we could whine, we could cower, we could give up, but we have always decided to come together, to fight back, and to envision something that is more bold, more free, and more transformative than anything any generation before us could have imagined. So today, I'm standing here as president of the Human Rights Campaign and proud to say that the Respect for Marriage Act is the law of the land, codifying protections into law for the LGBTQ plus community for us to marry. I'm proud to say that in this generation, today, we have a chance to end the HIV/AIDS epidemic in our lifetime. Today. I'm proud to say that when you look across the world, there is more out and open LGBTQ plus representation than ever before. Yeah, I'm talking about folks like Karine Jean-Pierre, who's sitting at the most powerful podium in the nation as a White House press secretary. I'm talking about the first out prime minister in France who was just elected into office. I'm talking about people like Jeff Gennett, who is the CEO of Macy's, an out and proud man leading one of the largest retailers in the country. This is progress. And this is a type of progress that is exactly at stake if we don't continue to take action. Because the change that I'm talking about that we've seen over the last 40 years at the Human Rights Campaign, it didn't occur overnight. It happened because we believed in the power of our people. It happened because we amassed a movement of supporters in big cities and small towns, of Democrats and Republicans, of private sector folk and public sector folk, of folks that were coming together across lines of difference because we believed that we could change the course of history, and we did. And fundamentally, it happened because we understood very clearly at the time, and just as clearly as we do today, that the fight for LGBTQ plus equality is fundamentally and essentially a fight for our people and for our very democracy. So I want to say this. Let me check. Last year, for the first time in the history of the Human Rights Campaign, we declared a national state of emergency for LGBTQ plus Americans. Now, this was in response to nearly 600 anti-LGBTQ plus bills that were introduced in state legislatures across the country, particularly targeting trans lives and trans kids, 80 of which were signed into law. But not only was it the bad bills, with each bill that was introduced, we saw as much as a 400% increase in online bullying and harassment geared towards LGBTQ plus kids. Not only was it the bad bills, but we saw an all-time high of hate crimes against our community. 1 in 5 of every hate crime being motivated by anti-LGBTQ plus violence. Not only was it the bills, but we saw another deadly year for trans lives, particularly Black trans women. And as I've been traveling the country, it's been very clear to me that what's happening isn't just one state of emergency. It's millions and millions of individual states of emergency that are playing out in our communities every single day. I mean, look, my friends, when Proud Boys are showing up with AR-15s outside of libraries and drag queen story hours, you better believe we are in a state of emergency. When allies like Lori Carlton are being shot and murdered for waving a pride flag in allyship, we are in a state of emergency. When parents are uprooting their families because they'd rather mourn their homes than their kids, we're living in a state of emergency. From pediatricians receiving death threats to teachers who are facing charges for mentioning LGBTQ plus people, from discrimination that persists in housing and credit and public services, my community is in a chilling state of emergency. And the thing about it is, as the old folks used to say to me, I may not know the song, but this rhythm surely is familiar. Because this system of oppression and violence that we're experiencing, it's not new. From the revolutionaries in that Tea Party in Boston, to the brave foot soldiers in the civil rights movement, to the dedicated land stewards in the indigenous rights movement, to the relentless people that have fought for disability rights, for reproductive rights. We have always seen defenders of inclusive democracy be met with the same old playbook of division, of trying to conquer us and ultimately threaten us with violence. What we're seeing play out, we have to see it for what it is. They're pitting us against one another so we don't look at the real problem. It's not white versus black. It's not straight versus gay. It's not born here versus immigrant. It's not Democrat versus Republican. What we are seeing play out is an extremism that threatens all of us. An obsession with restricting freedoms that threatens all of us. An obsession with preserving power that threatens all of us. And that's why we see bomb threats at schools and Nazis at drag shows and Molotov cocktails terrorizing churches. One thing that we have to be clear about is that this violence is and has always been a response to the power that we hold. Donna Edwards said it on this panel earlier. We can't be obsessed with the 25% when there's 75% of America that is on the right side of history, y'all. So I've been thinking more and more about what it means for us to move forward, knowing that we are the majority, but still threatened by such a nature of extremism and violence. Right? And understanding that the political violence that we are seeing in our day-to-day lives and in our politic, it's a threat to the very existence of all of us. I got to remind myself that on today, we are still living in a democracy. Is that right? Is that right? Okay, I grew up in the church. I got to hear some call and response sometimes, all right? We are still living in a democracy where the people have a say. Is that right? That's right. So today we have the chance to do as James Baldwin instructed, to love this country enough. Yes, to criticize her, but to love her enough to make her more perfect too. And I want to say this, because we know extremists are watching us, right? Y'all live streamed it, I heard. Love of country does not mean never having to say you're sorry. And it certainly doesn't mean revising history so you can skip the apology altogether. For me, love of country means owning the past and learning from it. It means seeing the present as it is and reaching for a future that we can all believe in. A future that's not great again, but a future that's greater than anything that could have been dreamt up before right now. You know, there are a lot of things that we can do to advance this work and this movement and this fight towards equality and a true representative democracy. There are a couple things I want to underscore for us as we're getting into our conversations and more importantly into our actions outside of this room. And I will say, this room is an interesting one to meet in because some reports said that some of the people that were conspiring around January 6th met in hotel rooms in this building to plan the attack. So what a way the universe moves that we're here talking about how to undo those wrongs. But the first thing, and I think, Mr. Jenkins, you said it right, we got to humanize this fight for progress and equality. We got to humanize one another enough to truly listen to people that we disagree with. You know, you said something that stuck with me. You said, humanity makes the idea of violence nearly impossible. That's one of our charges together here. And democracy has always meant being at the table with people that we disagree with, engaging across different perspectives. Now's the time when we have to create space to do that. And it ain't happening in the comments on your Instagram. It's happening in person in rooms like this that we can cultivate together. The second thing I want us to think about as we're getting into 2024, and this could not be more urgent, is using our political power and our influence beyond closed-door meetings with elected officials, but to speak out boldly and in public and to use our relationships together to transform the institution. Because I truly believe that when I talk about protecting democracy, I'm actually talking about reimagining it. John Lewis used to say this all the time. It's time for us to ensure that America finally lives up to her promise to us, to all of us. So I gotta say, you know, being Black queer girl, family from Iowa, growing up in Chicago, I never knew that rooms like this could exist. Rooms like this where we have the capacity to literally change the world. So I have to say, I am in awe of all of you. I'm honored to be in your company, and I am gonna be relentless in pursuit of ensuring that our democracy lives up to her promise to all of us. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Give me a hug. This is a beautiful conversation.